Hi, this is Pat Johnson, your psychology instructor, and in this mini lecture we're going to talk about schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is one of those psychological disorders that has a lot of misinformation portrayed about it in movies and TV shows and in readings. The general public often thinks that schizophrenia is where the person has multiple personalities, and nothing could be further from the truth. Having multiple personalities and schizophrenia are not the same thing. They are entirely two different disorders. Schizophrenia is a type of psychosis, and psychosis is a general term, meaning the person is out of touch with reality. So if a person is psychotic, they're not dealing with the here and now. They really can't function. They are very, very mentally ill. And I want you to think of schizophrenia as a disease where the organ involved is the brain. So somebody might have diabetes, somebody might have cancer, and different organs in their bodies are affected by diabetes or cancer. But in schizophrenia, the organ that is involved is the brain. So the person is very sick and having really bizarre symptoms because their brain has the disorder of schizophrenia. Now, when we talk about positive symptoms, the positive symptoms of schizophrenia are something that is added. So positive doesn't mean good. In this sense, positive means something is added that wasn't there before. So when we're talking about the positive symptoms of schizophrenia, we mean disorganized speech. So the person may have very really speech or language patterns where words are just thrown together and it doesn't make sense. So the person who is trying to understand them can't understand what they're saying. So disorganized speech can sometimes be called word salad, where words are just thrown together. The person could also have delusions, and delusions are false beliefs. It could be a delusion that the person could fly. It could be a delusion that other people are persecuting them. It could be a delusion of grandeur, where they believe they are somebody famous or somebody like Jesus Christ, but they have these false beliefs. Person could also be having hallucinations, and a hallucination is a false sensory experience. So, for example, hearing voices that aren't there. And by this picture, I'm not trying to show different personalities, but the person hears voices in their head. These aren't thoughts, these are real voices, as loud as my voice is right now, but they're being made up by the person's own brain. And you can just imagine how disconcerting, how frightening hearing voices are. It could also be a false sensation of seeing something that isn't there. And the person could have inappropriate emotions and actions. So these are going to all look very strange. They're going to look very bizarre. These are the positive symptoms of schizophrenia. Something is added that wasn't there before. The person can also have negative symptoms. Negative means something is gone that wasn't there before. And the negative symptoms of schizophrenia are social withdrawal, where the person doesn't want to be around other people. Poverty of speech, where the person isn't saying much of anything at all. Or flat affect. And affect means emotions, so there's that blunting of emotions where their emotions all just seem to be level, no highs, no lows at all. And then loss of motivation, where there's just no motivation to do anything. In schizophrenia, we see brain abnormalities. We see abnormalities in the neurotransmitters, but we also see abnormalities in the brain itself. And one of the brain abnormalities we find are enlarged ventricles. Ventricles are these fluid-filled places in the brain. This is a normal brain over on this side. And a normal brain has these fluid-filled gaps. They're filled with cerebral spinal fluid, and that's totally normal. But in this brain, you see that the ventricles are enlarged. That gap is actually bigger. And if the fluid-filled spaces are getting bigger, that means the brain itself is shrinking. So that's not good. That's enlarged ventricles. We also see decreased activity in the frontal lobe. So remember, the frontal lobe is at the front of the brain. That's where motivation and planning. And so that symptom of withdrawal and kind of an apathy towards life can be seen by the decreased activity in the frontal lobe. We also see abnormal activity in the thalamus. So the thalamus is in the center of the brain, which is the relay center for sensory information. And if you have abnormal activity in a center that relays sensory information, that could really be accounting for the hallucinations that we see in schizophrenia. And then the amygdala, if you remember, that's part of the limbic system, and the amygdala is responsible for emotions. So we can really see, though, that flattening of emotion, that loss of either highs or lows that we see in normal people. So there's again, schizophrenia is a disease. It's a disease of the brain. It does have social influences. It does have psychological influences, but it certainly is also biological. And in some cases, we can see it in the brain. So please remember that schizophrenia is not having a split personality. We'll talk about having a split personality in another lecture. We're going to call that dissociative identity disorder. But schizophrenia has nothing to do with having a split personality. They are two entirely different disorders.